Joined now by Melissa Otto of TIAA-CREF Investment Management. Melissa, good to have you with us. Don't you like our new stools? We're perched up here. So what about, there you go. Well, this is the results of Microsoft. They could send someone flying. The stock was up in after hours trading. What did you think of that? Let's talk about Xbox 360 for just a moment. The increase that they're projecting for the holiday season, about 30%.
It's pretty good, especially when you compare that with what we're seeing from Nintendo, which is really the opposite. We're seeing a massive deceleration in their business. In the quarter that they reported last night, we saw that their sales were down minus 40%. This is not exciting.
This is not good news for Nintendo.
This is not good news, no. Hardware and software both getting hit with double-digit declines. Now, the yen is not helping them, but to your point, I mean, Microsoft really kicking it up with Xbox. I think Halo really hit it out of the ballpark, $200 million debut.
Halo is good. Also, they're talking about this idea of the Windows Phone, this idea that maybe there are casual gamers out there, not just the hardcore, but other people getting involved in games through using their smartphones. Is that also going to benefit companies like Microsoft to the detriment of companies like Nintendo? They don't have that.
Absolutely. I mean, actually, Nintendo's North America management called out Apple recently, saying that Apple is actually making some noise for them with the casual gamer. And I think we're going to see the same thing from Xbox. Because if you're a core gamer and you just have a couple of friends over and you want to have a couple of casual games or you want to kill some time on your smartphone, why not have the capability of doing both? Whereas the Wii product offering and the Nintendo product offering is really just a casual gamer. It doesn't really capture that core gamer.
So how does a company, let's say like Sony and the PlayStation, how do they respond to that situation? I mean, they've got the Sony Ericsson tie-up on mobile phones. Is that an area that they're going to be spending some time on?
I think they might. You know, I think that's the suspicion out there. We're going to hear their numbers tonight. I'm really excited to hear what they have to say. They're hosting a call tomorrow, and I think it'll be pretty interesting to see what sort of outlook they give for the holiday season, what we're expecting, what their buzz is going to be, their new IT items, and where they're really addressing and focusing on the market.
When you heard the Microsoft results, I mean, were you surprised by the growth that they're talking about? They say the consumer's not there yet, but the enterprise, that seems to be robust.
I think it's pretty interesting, you know, and one area that we've been really looking at is the cloud. And the cloud is a very, very exciting offering for the space that I look at in particular, because it basically says that where we are right now in terms of entertainment, where content is, where hardware is, a lot of that's going to converge very rapidly. And I think consumers are just going to say, why do I need these devices with all this storage? Let's just put it on the cloud. I can look at all my pictures. I can watch movies. I can play games. And I don't have to deal with these massive devices around my television set.
Right, it's just all connected via the internet. It's all out there somewhere. It's in the cloud. Melissa Otto, TIAA-CREF Investment Management, is our guest. Melissa, all right, so we take away a little bit of positive news from the Microsoft earnings, particularly when it comes to gaming, Xbox 360. What are you looking for Sony to report? Because they'll be coming out with their results later this evening.
Specifically, I'm looking at the TV and the game businesses, because those have just been annihilated the past couple of years. They've had very, very high costs. They've been slammed by the yen, and we've seen demand really recede. So I'm looking forward to see if maybe we see a little bit of demand coming back. We see better Forex management from hedging and them not anniversarying the outrageous costs that they have over the past 2 years. So a little bit of top line, maybe a little bit on the margin expansion story. So we're watching very carefully.
Does Sir Howard Stringer at Sony, does he have any leeway? I mean, this is he's been working on an overall plan to try to turn Sony around. Does he have any leeway for error here?
I think the thing that they're trying to do is to get some sizzle back into the company. I mean, Sony, when I was growing up, had so much sizzle. I mean, you had to have a Sony Walkman. You had to have a Sony product. It was just announced
yesterday that Sony has basically officially ended making the Walkman in Japan.
Exactly, the end of an era, so to speak. But I think they're trying to do that with the new Google TV coming out for this holiday. And I'm curious to see how consumers respond to that. You know, the people that I've polled and the different research reports that we've gone through and our discussions with retailers, suggest that there could be a pretty decent appetite out there for an internet-based television, because it does fuse and converge the consumer's ability to watch content from the internet, things like Hulu.com and YouTube, and also their own videos on their television.
All right, so maybe we get an uptick in the sales of these new internet-connected televisions this winter.
Perhaps. That's what we're hoping for.
That's what you're hoping for. All right, tell me about what's also hot right now. This has to do with Hello Kitty and Sanrio. I noticed, because I know that you cover the company, and I noticed that there was a recent smart car that was painted with the Hello Kitty logo. Why is this so popular, and why are these stores popping up all over the West Coast of the United States?
Good question. I think Hello Kitty is just, it's become hot right now. It's very popular in Europe. And just looking at the company's stock chart, you can see that they have really come back to life. And if we look at it 2 years ago, it was trading at nearly half the market cap that it is now. And I just think that the company's licensing of apparel and some other items has really gotten a little bit of sizzle back into the brand. And it's kind of got this retro cool vibe to it that may be resonating with consumers right now. It's a little bit different.
So Hello Kitty, hello profits. What you mentioned the Japanese yen. How important is the exchange rate, 80, 81 yen to the dollar? How important is that to the companies in Japan that you follow?
I mean, frankly speaking, the yen is killing the Japanese companies' competitiveness. Now, some companies are much better at managing that. They hedge very well. They're taking advantage of a strong yen and procuring parts and raw materials using their strong yen and bringing it back in. But others are not, and they're just getting really crushed by the strength of the yen. And that's really all I can say on the subject.
Is it likely to continue? I mean, are we going to stay at these levels, 80, 81? I mean, or are they going to call someone at the Bank of Japan or in the Japanese government and say, we can't exist with this kind of exchange rate disparity?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, if I had my crystal ball and I could be like, ooh, it's going to 70 yen or it's going to 100 yen, I wouldn't be here. I'd be on my boat in the Mediterranean. But, the reality of the yen and the dollar rate, I think a lot of it's going to have to do with what happens here in the U.S. and whether or not we see an uptick in jobs, whether we see an uptick in our consumer that's going to get our dollar kind of back and running again. But I don't necessarily think that that's really going to be the case. My sense from Geithner is that he would like to see more exports out of the U.S. and might want to keep that policy a little bit moderated. And so we may not see much of a change in America's currency stance.
So what do Japanese companies do? Do they then offshore as much as the production as possible?
I think it depends on the sophistication of the company, whether they have good knowledge and sophisticated strategies in managing the hedging, or whether they don't, and how they procure and what types of raw materials they need for the products that they make.
All right. I want to thank you very much, Melissa Otto, coming to us from TIAA-CREF Investment Management. Appreciate it.